Welcome back to the Scholar Faithful podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Breitman, coming to you on Friday, June 23rd. It's been a week, and I got to the fifth podcast for the week. Missed Monday with a holiday and being off of work. Got two out yesterday, one on Rutgers football, all the flurry of commitments, and then also one-on-one interview with Derek Simpson. Hope if you haven't listened or watched the Simpson interview, you get a chance to over the weekend. And I wanted to just kind of make this episode about some different thoughts and kind of takeaways on the status of the program right now, Rutgers men's basketball. And I wanted to start with Simpson. I think if you listened or watched, he's very impressive. He sounds very mature. I felt that way last year when I spoke to him before the season. He credited his family. His father, started at Rider and is also has coached him throughout his journey. And I think he's just someone to feel really good about that's in the program right now. I know we've all dwelled on who's no longer at Rutgers, uh, and I've harped a little bit on the impact that Ron Harper Jr., Caleb McConnell, Geo Baker have made. Also, a guy like Miles Johnson in the past. Paul Mulcahy, even Jacob Young to an extent. But Simpson is very much in the mold of how Geo, Ron, and Caleb approach things with Rutgers. And, I was really impressed with how he was talking about how he's, been going back and watching film and taking notes and how he studied other players on the team and on other Big Ten teams and how he's learning from that. He just is a very methodical and I think complete approach, talking about always learning. And, I really didn't take it as sometimes you can read through some talking points, but he lives it. He really interacts and goes about his business in a very strategic way. And I think it's a really encouraging sign to be a rising sophomore and the maturity in which and the professionalism in which he's handling things. So that was a big takeaway for me. And I think just the fact that he is going to have a much larger role, just not on the court, but in terms of an impact in the locker room, in the culture of the program. And that's looking like a very positive thing right now. So I'm excited about that. And it was really good to talk to him. I thought he also, in terms of how he's helping the freshmen along, that was kind of a segue to my second point. Talking about Gavin Griffiths and Jamichael Davis, Steve Pikiell did discuss Griffiths on his interview on the Big Ten this morning on SiriusXM this week, and did talk about how he's going to play a big role. Even mentioned he felt like he will be up for best freshman in the conference, or something to that degree. I forget his exact quote, but Simpson taking a lead role and kind of sitting them down and helping. He referenced, Antoine Woolfolk and Antonio Choll as well, doing that with him. And that was another thing, just in terms of the fact that there is unity with that class, those rising sophomores. They feel a bond together. And then the fact that they felt an obligation or a responsibility to then sit with the freshmen coming in. These are all positive signs of a winning culture. And you kind of have to, there's seeds along the way that start growing, and you can see them before they fully materialize or sprout, so to speak. And those are the types of things that I look for. And when I hear Derek Simpson talking that way, I just think it's a really comforting thing to know. And I did ask him about Gio and Ron and Caleb, how they've talked in the past, and they have said this to me and also others about passing the baton, creating a winning program, and then entrusting the underclassmen to carry the torch, so to speak. And Simpson's super humble and said there's a lot of players on this team that can do that next year, but it's the little things and just his approach and mindset, just in terms of with his teammates. That to me is just, it's reassuring. And I think that it shows there is a continuation there from guys like Gio, Ron, and Caleb. And for me, that's a really comforting fact to know that, of course, there's a ton of confidence in Steve Pikiell and the coaching staff. And I think Simpson just reiterates that the culture is deep, the preparedness, the approach, the mindset, it's all still there. The faces are different, but the all of that still remains. And I think, yeah, JaMychal Davis, he might have a chance to play more than we first suspected. We know Gavin Griffiths is going to play a big role, and that ties into point number 3, which is the transfer portal right now. And I think that there hasn't been much updates. No one's reporting any targets or names that have either visited or scheduled. Rutgers has been very busy with the class of 25. I've talked about that a lot. Obviously just signed Emmanuel Abole to next season's roster. They just got a commitment from Bryce Dortch in 2024. We know they're pursuing Dylan Harper, and they went out to Vegas and visited him at USA basketball camp. He, by the way, starts this weekend for the U19 World Cup for USA basketball. So I'll have some updates there next week. But just in terms of Pikiell's approach, he's very methodical. We know that. Just how he handled the assistant coaching search, how he's handled the transfer portal in the past. I do, and I've talked about this a couple of times, but from this context point, the fact that they pounced on Noah Fernandes so quickly, I think is hard evidence of recognizing a need to add playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, of getting guys that can create. And the fact that they went out and got him early in April is, I think, a testament to their strategy and their plan, right? I think that's obvious. And we do know that, part of that plan was to better the situation for Cam Spencer, right? As a shooter, and maybe not a kind of on-ball creator, be able to create off the bounce. That's not his game. They needed someone that could do that because we know how last season ended, where it was really all on Derek Simpson. So getting Noah Fernandes the way they did, obviously, is huge, even more so at this point. But I also think looking at the mindset and kind of the approach is telling in terms of how they are looking to change things up a little bit, and both offensively and I think maybe pace. I think definitely a more up-tempo style. But again, you have to have depth for that too. And right now, Rutgers has 10 scholarship players for next season. And that ties back to JaMychal Davis, where I think, obviously they need to add somebody out of the portal. But depending on who it is and what position it is, and, JaMychal Davis, he's super athletic. He might have a chance to make an impact right away. And that would, it's going to be interesting this year, especially with the way the roster is right now. Pikiell is definitely going to be forced out of his, I don't want to say comfort zone, but the way he typically operates with underclassmen, with freshmen, with rotations. He's got, it's a different team. It's a new team. And it's going to be interesting to see. We've seen how he's adapted so far, but it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to rotations. I've talked about this a little bit before. I mean, other than Cliff, if you think about it, I mean, yes, Derek Simpson is going to play a lot. Andre Hyatt's going to get big minutes. We know about Mag, if he's healthy and able, he's going to get minutes. But no one is locked in or guaranteed the way I feel like the roster has been in the past, where, all the 3, 4, 5-year core guys, they're getting 30 minutes a game, and I don't think there's many guys in this roster that are guaranteed that this year. And I actually like that. I think competition wise, that is big. And I think it's going to push individual players. It's going to push the team forward. So I would say at this point, rule nothing out. And JaMychal Davis is a really intriguing player. Obviously, he plays with Ace Bailey, AAU, in high school. But JaMychal Davis, I tweeted at some point, I need to write more about him so people know. But I mean, he was all league player. He was, I think, even more than that. I think it might have been sectional or region, but he got a lot of buzz in his own right this past year. And I think he's going to be a really good on-ball defender. I think he's going to be able to get out in transition. And, how is he able to create off the dribble? I know that he can, but can he do that right away at the next level? We'll have to see. But I just think that he is a player that, is, for me, I'm starting to open up to realizing the possibility that, he might be more of a rotational player this year than I thought. And the fact that, going overseas is really going to benefit that development. Going back to the other point about the portal, Pikiell is being deliberate, and that's just always has been his approach, and he's not looking just to add to add. Coke Washington did the same with women's basketball. They're up to 10 now, but she's doing the same thing. And I think that's how you preserve the culture. And obviously, Rutgers doesn't want to go into next season with 10 roster scholarships on roster. You need more, but I don't think he's going to rush or panic. Look today. I mean, all these West Virginia players are going in the portal. I'm not saying Rutgers is targeting any of them. We'll see. I really like Joe Toussaint, the former Iowa Hawkeye. Who knows? Will country roads lead to Piscataway? Remains to be seen. But college basketball, also the other part of the recruiting cycle now, is it never ends. So you can be more deliberate in June. I was initially thinking that, they needed to figure this out really quick. And maybe now you don't. Maybe you do need to be more deliberate. I think that is what Pikiell's doing. You have that August trip to sell in terms of, if you get someone in July, you're still going to have time to work with them in August, more so because you get those 10 extra practices going overseas. So, again, tremendous timing there. That's really working out. But I think the portal, you're going to see Pikiell remain deliberate and methodical in his approach, and he's not going to just bring anyone into the program. They're doing their due diligence. There's a lot of people still in the target. There's probably 1,000 people still in the target, players still in the portal. But there's going to be plenty of low major guys, mid major guys out there. Are they the right fit? Another thing Steve Pikiell said in his radio interview this week was that that transfer portal is like speed dating. So, he's going to try to slow that down as much as possible. So people that are like, well, there haven't been any visitors reported. There has, what's going on? As the staff has proven time and time again, they have backup plans for backup plans for backup plans. We saw it with Bryce Dortch after Delquan Warren decommitted. So trust in the process with Pikiell, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see who they add. I think it's got to be best available, and I think that goes into part two with also Davis, and he might need to be more ready than they initially thought. I don't want to get into expectations for the season yet. We need to see what the roster is going to be like, but Gavin Griffiths playing more is only going to help the next season as well when you have that class of 24 come in. So I think that's a blessing too. For all the guys that are going to get more playing time this year, it's only going to help Rutgers next year. Does that mean it's going to be a step back in a developmental year? Maybe, maybe not. There's still a strong core in this team that I really like. Moving on, or kind of transitioning a little bit. So I talked about Caleb McConnell just in terms of – actually, no, I haven't talked about Caleb McConnell. That's why I have my list here. Caleb McConnell, a little bit of a segue here, signed a Exhibit 10 contract in the middle of the night after the draft. Was hoping he would get a two-way deal. Did not. Exhibit 10 basically means he's it's for the NBA league minimum, which is pretty good, but there's no guarantee he'll be on the roster for the season. Basically, he's going to play on the Oklahoma City Thunder summer league team, needs to do well there, continue to stay in the organization, go to training camp. They could renegotiate, or basically what they would have to do is clear waivers. Or I think they can transition the contract to a two-way deal where he is in the G League. And if they clear waivers, then he could go to the G League for anyone. So it's kind of a work in progress. But listen, he got a deal. Happy for him. And hopefully makes the most of it. The summer league, gets to training camp, does well there. And I think, a two-way deal in the G League would be great for him and a great developmental opportunity. At the end of the day, he's going to have to make shots at a high enough clip that he can stay in the league. We know he can defend. The league knows he can defend. It's about being good enough offensively. I've gotten a lot of comments about he's the perfect defensive stopper. Yes, I look back at Dante Jones, right? And I've joked, well, I haven't fully joked because I'm partly serious and I'm still bitter about Dante Jones leaving Rutgers for Duke. But I do really like Dante Jones. I actually played against him in high school, and he he was the consummate defensive stopper. He had a 14, 15-year career because of it. Those guys don't really exist in the modern NBA. And you hear, I don't know if you've heard the term 3-and-D, but that's more of what it is now. Guys that defend, multiple positions, defend the ball, but also knock down threes, knock down shots. And that's probably what is going to determine Caleb McConnell's ultimate fate. I think worst case, he'll have a good career overseas. But this is a tremendous opportunity for him in the summer league. We'll be covering it, of course, but I'm excited about for that. And I know I've kind of bounced around a little bit, but I'm going to end with my fifth point, which is the program mantra remains. And Derek Simpson confirmed that when I asked him about Pikiell's message to the program. And he said that Pikiell, talks about how Rutgers doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, doesn't get talked about enough, kind of gets, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but gets discounted. And then also talked about just it's all about the work, it's all about what you put in, and that's how this program is going to get better. And that just again ties back to the culture piece and the way that Simpson was kind of what I liked about it. It wasn't mechanical in terms of how he was discussing it. He almost did like a little voice imitation of Pikiell at one point, but he said, he hasn't said it this way, but I interpreted it this way. And that, again, that strong messaging without beating a dead horse or making the players robots in terms of what they're saying and repeating and thinking. I just think that I've said this a bunch of times over the year. I mean, the Rutgers has always excelled when their back was against the wall. There's been times they failed, but more times than not, they've succeeded. And there is definitely, absolutely going to be a chip on this team's shoulder going into next season, without a doubt. And that confirmed it for me in talking to Derek Simpson that this team, I think that and Pikiell and Simpson both have been very classy, and I'm not trying to contradict them, but they're only saying positive things about the players that left, and I think that it is helping to unify the players that are still back, that are committed to the program. And I think it could be a galvanizing moment. Again, tying to the overseas trip, it's perfect timing, but it's a galvanizing moment for the program in terms of who's staying, who's entering, and how they're going to move forward. And obviously the work is the most important part, but I just really love the mental approach, the mindset, and the belief that it's still very much with all the success that Rutgers has, it's still very much us against the world mentality. And again, I think that that's just kind of, as much as we talk about Pikiell as a defensive coach, and he's also very much chip on his shoulder coach, and that's kind of a key part of the identity of the program. And I think that that's where they did lose their way a little bit in the beginning of 2 seasons ago, where they had that bad start and they were on the brink of getting eliminated before that heroic 4-game winning streak against ranked foes 4 games in a row, first time ever. They had to get their mojo back that way, being the underdog. And that is, it brings up an interesting question about next season. If the 2024 class, if they're ranked number 1 or number 2 nationally, how do you instill that kind of mindset to blue chip recruits? We'll table that for another day. But my point is, the identity remains in this program. The culture remains. The mindset remains. And Derek Simpson being at the forefront. And this isn't just me plugging that interview. You don't have to go and listen to it or watch it if you don't want to. But this is kind of my reaction to a lot of things he said. I just am really positive about it. And that's why I wanted to speak to him and get him out in front of everyone, because I felt like that is what is going on in the program in terms of that kind of approach and that kind of maturity. And it makes me excited for next season. Yes, the roster needs to get deeper. Yes, there's concerns there. Yes, there's inexperience, but the culture remains strong. And to me, that is the biggest positive in terms of being optimistic that Rutgers men's basketball is not going anywhere. Obviously, the trajectory and the recruiting trail is tremendous right now, even with 25. I've talked about this week the recruits that they're involved with, but I'm just really excited to see this team in action. I think the athleticism, the talent, and even though they're only 10 deep right now, I think, man for man, your top 10, they're, this can be a deeper team. Injuries are obviously a concern. Moat Mag, Emmanuel Agbole, I think he's fine now, but he did suffer an injury at the end of last season for himself. They're going to have to stay healthy. But backs against the wall, work ethic, culture, they're all there. So this team can, whatever the expectations are, I believe this team will be able to exceed them. They'll have a real opportunity to do so. And it's going to be fascinating to see who they do add to the portal, because it's going to be a key piece, right? It's got to be someone that can come in and make an impact. I'm not talking about, if it's a starter or a key contributor off the bench. They need to fill some gap, whether it's a, versatile defender that can rebound, whether it's a spot up shooter, whether it's another, ball handler, whatever it may be. They need to add a piece, hopefully two. But it is late in the game. But again, the culture has changed with recruiting, right? And people still entering the portal. It's a new world. It's a new world, and we're all adapting. And most importantly, Steve Pikiell is adapting, but still maintaining that mindset, that culture, all of that. Thank you for listening and watching once again, and hope you have a great weekend. I'll only be back over the weekend if breaking news happens. Otherwise, I'll be back on Monday. Appreciate everyone, and please, follow all my content on scarletfaithful.com. Have a great weekend.